Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Space Snacks. Today's guest is Iwin Iyyadurai. I had it. Iyyadurai.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that was correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Iwin, it's so great to have you on Space Snacks. Um,
Thank you very much for having me.
uh, could you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Yeah, I was born in India, South India to specific. Like literally, you can point the southernmost tip of India. That's where I'm from. I was born there. Moved to U.S. when I was 11. Uh, I came here. I wasn't, initially like looking to get involved in aviation, but I knew that's where I wanted to go focus on, and that's what I wanted to study engineering since I was like probably 8, somewhere around that age. When I came here, I got to do middle school here for 2 years, and I found out this about this high school called Aviation Career Technical High School. It's a public high school in New York City that teaches you aircraft maintenance, and it's a 4 or 5 year program. If you stay for 4 years, you get one license, while if you stay for 5 years, you get two licenses, both an airframe and a power plant license. And a lot of people do go straight out of there to airlines to work in the industry, as a mechanic. And but my goal was always to do engineering and create new and interesting things. So I went from there. I only stayed for 4 years, got my airframe license, went to Embry-Riddle in Daytona Beach to do my aerospace engineering. Until then, I was very focused on aviation. Like I knew about space, like all the things that were going on because it was interesting, but I wasn't actively involved or participating in anything space related. When I was there, I got the option to choose between astro or aero or propulsion. And I don't know, people kept saying astro is the hardest thing. So I don't know, for some reason that kind of motivated me to do the astro track. I'm glad I did. I mean, I learned a lot from the professors there, and it's kind of been giving me more guidance to go towards space and all the new activities that's happening in space. It's kind of a very interesting time to be involved in space with all the technology advancements that's happening on a very short period of time. And so that from there, I decided to start a company and go work on things that I found interesting.
Yeah. Oh, wow. There's so much here for me to dive into with you. The first one, as you know, I've got my propeller above me, and so the
Yeah.
idea of aviation, and I would have loved to go to an aviation high school. I That would have been amazing. So, did you always love airplanes?
Uh, yeah, since very little, honestly, like nobody in my family or like anybody I knew was in aviation. So like I didn't have the big connection, but I used to love like we used to have these encyclopedias, and I'd always look at all the pictures and read about the airplanes on that. That was like my first thing, and then I'd go run out and see airplanes flying above and point and run after them as a kid.
That's the
That's
same. Yeah, I totally can relate because I literally kind of came out of the womb looking up and being like, the plane. Um, and I used to build model airplanes and everything as a kid. And again, looking through the books and just wanting to be a pilot. For me, it was always military aviation, though. I watched all of the World War II movies and a show called Baba Black Sheep and just building these planes. And so when you went to the high school, did you want to be a pilot at all?
well, no, not. I wanted to fly. I did, then I took training and stuff. That's an even longer story, like a black hole to get into. But yeah, I did fly, but I didn't want to do it professionally. I always wanted to be an engineer. So that was
Mm-hmm.
my focus until like I got out of college.
Yeah, and so as an engineer, you building planes specifically, and then you found aerospace, and then now you want to build things that go into space.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. Like when I was in middle school, there was this documentary. I think it was called Flight or something, and they dove deep into like the aviation history and stuff. They talked a lot about Burt Rutan, and like he's like a very inspirational figure. He's done so much from aviation all the way to space. So it's kind of an interesting story. And like, a couple of professors I had were very, he was their idols too. So it kind of just evolved.
Oh, that's so great. And so now when you're with your company, what kind of things do you want to build?
Well, at the moment, we're focusing on CubeSats, 3 to 6 U size CubeSats, where the idea is to build a swarm of them that each has a specialized function, but
Hmm.
together can achieve a larger mission. So instead of like building a large satellite with all the components in it, the goal is to, like democratize it more and break it down into individual systems, and each system gets its own frame and components own like satellite, and together like 4 or 5 systems together can like you custom uh, not custom build them, but you take existing stuff, but you do a custom mission using existing
Oh.
technology and smaller in a small sat capability.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. And so you're talking about, um, each one being specialized, but together they come together to be able to do something or solve some problem or look at things.
Yeah, I mean, my goal is like we start like I want to start at around low Earth orbit, but
Hmm.
eventually to build bigger, like more satellites that we can send around all the planets, and so we can have a whole bunch of small sats that are constantly taking readings and doing different measurements or whatever like the mission at the time is around like literally the entire solar system and beyond.
Oh, I really love that. The when I think about these small kind of CubeSats and any of those kinds of things, I don't know if you watch the TV show The Expanse, but I always think
Yeah,
about all of those robots that come out and work on. I
yeah.
love those graphics because thinking about them all working together. And now when we're talking about drone technology, where you can have them all fly and do all of these interesting formations where they're acting as one, even though they're individual small components.
Yeah, I mean that's a powerful thing, bringing together a lot of like relatively inexpensive components to build something that's complex, but still, have because you have so many, because they're divided into individual sections, you don't have to, you know, worry about a big set like one thing failing and everything falling apart. You can have more backups without having to increase the complexity of the design.
Yeah, I that's really interesting, and it gets me thinking a lot about like science fiction and the future of small components, and there's this idea of replicators that can,
Yeah.
self-replicating machines, but they all work together. Or if you were to think of like the Borg in Star Trek, where it's individuals but collectively they have one mind and can be working together. And if you lose one, another one kind of comes in and takes that place.
Yeah, that's kind of the idea. Like I'm coming from the computer server background, where like
Mhm.
I've done a lot of work on that side for a while, as well as telecom. So like that's kind of how it's designed. You have these radios and individual components that makes up a larger, interconnected structure of and like if one fails, like another one just replaces it and keep
Mhm.
going. The mission keeps going on, and with the servers like that was very useful, and that's what like got us to such large scale companies and infrastructure and all the amazing things that we take for granted today. That's the like cheap inexpensive servers that we're able to once put together, we're able to serve hundreds and thousands of people and beyond. Like we can literally, we have so much capability now, it's crazy. Like the next step is space, and how can we take all this technology we have on earth and put it in space and see what we can do with it up there.
You're absolutely right. And with this whole idea of exponential growth in technology, a short period of time, we can see big leaps in
Yeah.
what we can do, and that's exciting. Uh, if you could go anywhere in our solar system yourself and explore, where would you want to go and why?
Well, physically, I'd like to go to moon. Uh, I mean, if I had the opportunity, I would like to like go beyond. But I don't know. I can't put myself in a little container for months and months at a time. I like to go to the moon because it's a 1 week trip. 1 week, nice and chill, relax there. Maybe like go with friends or family, have a good time, and then come back. It'll be a nice short vacation.
I love that because I am a total moon girl. And the idea of just sitting on the moon and watching Earth rise, and I don't think that I can't imagine anything better than that for me personally. So I love that. And then watching maybe some of your CubeSats rotate above, taking selfies. The ultimate selfie is an Iwin CubeSat flying over of me hanging out, or us, I should say, hanging out on the moon, watching Earth
That
rise.
that would be awesome. That'd be so cool.
I love that idea. And so, if you could be on the moon watching Earthrise with your family, what would you want to eat?
Well, I like to keep it simple. A nice New York style pizza pie would do. I
You
love a
know,
plain cheese New York pizza.
I got to have my pepperoni. You had me at New York slice, though. Every time I go to New York City, I have to have my New York slice of pizza and just, fold it over and just, so good.
Well, the next time you're here, it's my treat.
Oh, that sounds great. I love that. And so I imagine that would be just amazing. I hadn't even thought about the fact that when we put boots on the moon in hopefully 2024, there will be satellites that are going to be orbiting, and being able to take pictures and do really interesting things because that's kind of the view that we didn't have before. We didn't, and so now that's just an amazing thought of actually not just getting video and stuff from the astronauts on the surface, but actually having satellites go by that are in orbit around the moon, taking and looking at what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's gonna happen now because since from the Apollo time to now, there's been so much advances in camera technology. I'm
Yes.
sure they will put thousands of them up there.
I know. That's so exciting to think about. And so tell us a little bit about your company and when did you start it and how's it been going? What does some of the thing I know we already talked about what you're working on, but kind of the inspiration about your own company, which I love. I win
Well,
Space.
yeah, it's been a dream of mine since little. I wasn't originally planning on doing space stuff though with it. I started at the company in 2017. I was just raising money, doing technology and a little bit of telecom work as well as mostly computer work at the time, and programming servers, stuff like that. And from there, slowly, I started the space side about back in February. Actually, it hasn't been that long, so we're still in a pretty early stage of the space sector. And this is I feel like this is the best time to get involved because of because of my background in computer science as well as aerospace engineering. I'm just trying to bring it together to build the capabilities of tomorrow so we can build all the infrastructure we need little by little so that we can have a prolonged stay in space. We'll be able to have humans going all over the solar system, be able to live there. And we need to set up the infrastructure to deliver resources. We need to have strong communications regardless of where, if we really want to be truly free and traveling and exploring this space, we have to set up all this infrastructure to make it safe and convenient. I mean, NASA is doing an amazing job going to space and stuff, but you have to have this mentality and a dedication to do the NASA side because it's not really very luxurious to go to space. I mean, there's so much stuff if that were it's I mean it's not I don't know, it's just not a luxurious experience. So we need to if we're going to have more and more people out in space, we need to make the experience more luxurious, feel it is important work people are doing, but I feel like they don't feel like it when they're there.
You
So
know,
like, we have to deliver a different level of experience to them.
you do, especially with space tourism coming. And so this whole idea of, if I'm a regular person who happens to be super rich and I want to go to space, I want it to be a fun.
Yeah.
I will, that's my vacation that I just spent, a $500,000 on. And
Yeah, I mean,
so, yeah.
yeah, Virgin Galactic is doing that. I mean, but they're only going to suborbital space, barely reaching
Mhm.
space, and you get 5 minutes in there. But like my goal is, we want to make it more comfortable to stay in space. I mean, there are a lot of companies like Sierra Nevada, so many companies that are working on solving this problem, and I'm just taking
Mhm.
it from a different perspective. How can we build the more? They're building like the actual systems where people stay in, and the experience of riding there. I'm looking into more of all the technology side, how we can make it more like we would be living on Earth rather than have to put up with like kind of like the camping feel of living in space.
Yes, and so that'll be really interesting, especially when you're talking about the space hotels, and what will that experience be like if I can go up and to a space hotel for a week and hang out. What are the expectations when it comes to that experience? What
Well,
do I get from my money?
well, hopefully a lot. I mean, it is like just being in space is like the ultimate experience. But we also have to add convenience. Like right now, NASA does not do laundry in space. They just burn it when they send it back. The toilets aren't really
Mhm.
the best. Like
Yeah.
you have to be trained into using a toilet. So we have to like figure out something more intuitive that you don't have to train people to use. So
Oh,
I mean, it's going to be a struggle, but we'll get there.
well, and what's interesting is food is going to be also an experience. And so I love what you're thinking about, the whole wrapping it all together of the luxuries the things that we take for granted here on Earth, like the toilet. I did a mission at High Seas recently, and they have a composting toilet, and it was very awkward and hard to navigate as a female with some of the issues. And so, going to space again, how do you make it interesting, fun, so that you get good reviews and more people come back. and
Yeah.
one of the things that I want to feel gravity. But if I'm going to a hotel, if I can't do a space walk, because that would be really dangerous, will tourists be able to do space walks? But if not, where do I get that ultimate kind of selfie photo of the Earth and me and kind of floating? And yeah.
I mean, that would be cool, like doing a space like every tourist gets to. I'm sure, honestly, like I think in maybe like a couple of decades, it will happen. At the moment, there's a company I work with, uh, Arch Rift. They're designing a helmet where instead of you like, but this is just for the suborbital flights. Instead of
Mhm.
a full-faced helmet or no helmet, you get to wear this portable, I mean, a deployable helmet around the like your suit around the neck area, but it doesn't deploy until it's actually needed. Say in case of an emergency or something,
Oh,
it
yes.
deploy and seal you, rather than you having to feel the inconvenience of it being there all the time.
Mhm.
It's a challenging thing. We're working on it. So it's it's an iterative process. We make things, it doesn't work out a lot of times, and then we find issues with this, so we like make changes. So it's a constant evolution. But the people, there are so many people, like so many really smart people are working on solving all these issues. So it's not going to be solved. Everything isn't going to be solved by one person. It's going to take the whole community to build the future space. Like we're all standing on the shoulders of titans who built all this stuff until
Yeah.
now. There, it's not like private companies in space isn't new. Like people have been making components for NASA and have had the experience for like years and decades. So it's not like, like new space isn't technically new. Those ideas have, we're just taking ideas that people had and using all the technology that's available to us now, and like bringing them together into like, so it looks like it's coming out of magic, but it's years and years of people's hard work. And like some people spent their entire lives designing these one or two systems that
Mhm.
we're using and taking for granted to build this whole ecosystem in space.
That is so true. And so when they were talking about, the first commercial, this and that, and I'm like, Apollo wouldn't, NASA likes to act like it was just NASA that put people on the moon, but really it was a lot of subcontractors.
There's a lot of
that,
both private and government
yes.
engineers working together.
Oh, it was and stuff. And so, because my dad worked for a Bendex corporation that no longer exists, but they were a big part of putting people on the moon and working at the tracking stations and the telemetry and all of those kinds of things. And so, like you said, it's learning from the past and bringing all that knowledge forward, but also with the new technology that we're creating. Where does artificial intelligence fall into this?
Well, we needed to control all the, if we're going to put hundreds and thousands of, small satellites, we need them to be controlled in a safe manner. And especially if they're going to talk to each other and act as one system, we
Mm-hmm.
can't, manually do it. And it's also very inefficient to do it. And Planet Labs, their entire, like from your order for their data to get it, like they're launching new systems to, for Google, mostly for Google Maps, to have specialized, like so that wherever like they have a coverage gap or like outdated data, they can just order it, and the entire process is automated.
Yeah.
So like automation is a very big thing that's going to drive the growth of space.
Mm-hmm.
And so like it is going to like need heavy investment. That is one of the sides we're focusing on. It's easy to build a CubeSat. I mean, it's not very easy, but it's doable to build a CubeSat. But then you have to do all this technology. So like right now, like the focus is we're not like completely building everything in our CubeSats. We're
Mm-hmm.
purchasing the radios, the antennas, some of the compute modules, the frames. So we don't have to, these are already done designs. That I mean, they've done such an amazing job. Like they're growing at a very like exponential pace. They're
Yeah.
improving on a daily basis. So we as one company can't do stuff like that. So we pick and choose that other people are great at, and try to bring our own expertise into it and try to build a full integrated system. We're not sure like 100% how it's going to end up, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
working progress at this moment. And hopefully like my goal is to within being a year have a solid system done, and then work on launching it and getting the systems in space and testing it.
That's it. That was my next question. Is that have you ever launched anything yet? And if not, when do you expect to launch, or would you
Yeah,
like to launch?
yeah, not yet. We're working with a couple of people who have launched already, so we're taking their expertise. They're in the CubeSat space, and we're adding our expertise into it and try to build. As I said, like those people have been working on the structures and the materials and the components for a long time, a lot longer than like some people have been working on space for a lot longer than I've been alive. So it's we take all the expertise we can get from outside and integrate it into our system. I mean, if everything that I don't have to do that somebody else is better at is something new I can focus on, something something else my resources can go and fill the void.
And what's interesting, and so I'm interested in food and stuff and technology and how food is going to change, and how technology will allow us to, whether it's 3D print food or use change textures, anything. The idea of the replicator, like in Star Trek, where you can just say, I want this, and it appears. Um, do you ever think about like those kinds of things and how you could maybe create technology that is food related, I guess?
Well, not particularly food related, but I did see like I've seen I do a lot of research in the entire broad spectrum of the field, so I stay up to date on the things. There was a hacker collective out of California that was working on 3D printing food and taking top chefs recipes
Mhm.
and like using them to print really good tasting food. So I mean, like, honestly, like there are people working on it, and it feels like they're a lot closer to having a solid technology to make it I feel like it's going to take a while for it to catch on into the market and become a normal thing even on earth. I feel like that might be the future. We'd never know. I mean, I'm kind of like, I like steak and stuff, but I feel like in the future they might even outlaw the entire thing. So I don't know how the next generation is going to live.
Well, now when you're thinking about, for me as a consumer, and when I think about CubeSats and what they can do, one of the things that I'm really curious as to, and I don't know if somebody's done this, but the idea of sending something up to space in a CubeSat, so it's small package, goes around our planet a couple of times, and then comes back, and you can retrieve it. Is that stuff that's been done successfully?
Yes, yes and no. Uh, there's there are people working on it, trying to do it. Like, I had a talk with somebody 2 weeks ago, and they wanted to see if we can shoot up ashes into space.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, it's a great idea, but at the moment it's very financially
Right.
burdening for most people. Same thing with sending something to space and bringing it back. It's hard enough sending it up there, but trying to make something that can survive, like something like an engagement ring, it
Yeah.
could be special. There are like certain sentimental things people would go beyond,
Mhm. Mhm.
and so like there are things that we can focus on, but we have to, it's going to take a couple of more iterations for the cost to come down to a level. At the moment, like even CubeSats, you have to be very like picky about what you want on it, so it actually makes financial sense to do it now. As I said, like technology is constantly evolving. So a couple of generations, a couple of iterations from now, like whatever you're doing now can be a lot cheaper then. So
Right.
is it worth doing it today at this higher cost, or should I wait a couple of iterations of technology advances so I can do 10 times that then? Like,
And,
what
and,
makes
and
sense?
I mean, obviously, the size and weight, but the launch vehicle to get it into orbit, and the ability to, do you have to rely on the big kind of SpaceX companies and stuff with the big rockets to be able to put these things up? Or is the technology for launching smaller packages uh, up on rockets? Can you do that?
Well, it's still cheaper to do it as a secondary payload on a bigger
Hmm.
rocket rather than use somebody
Okay.
like you know uh, the Electron rocket.
Hmm.
Just sorry, I just had a little moment of, yeah. So like it's a lot less cost effective if you're going to, like, say if you're launching like 100 of them. It's a lot cheaper for you to do it at that scale with somebody like SpaceX or one of the other providers, or
Hmm.
Europe, or somebody else, rather than But if you have a specific mission and a specific target you need to achieve, the only way to do that is through one of the smaller sized launch providers. So it's you have to pick and choose. Somebody says sounding rocket. Yeah, sounding rockets are a good thing, but they're not at the moment at the level to consistently get you there. So if you're going to spend all this time and energy building it, you're
Uh,
better off using somebody who's reputable, who will get you to space.
you don't want to lose it on the way up.
Yeah, even at CubeSat levels where you are making many of them, you can't afford to lose a few. You'd
So,
rather like have as many up there, you know.
so how big are your CubeSats?
CubeSats, they started out about 10 by 10 by 10.
Okay.
That's a 1U.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's the
sorry, I
one
didn't.
you. Okay, so that's what the U
Yeah,
stands for. Uh,
yeah, it's one unit.
okay. Not being in that world. So, because
Yeah,
you were saying 3U and 6U, right?
yeah. Three would be like three 1U stacked on top of each other. So it's like the
Okay.
length of that. So that's 10 by 10 by 30. And
Yeah.
6U would be two 3Us next to each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's these things called Pea Pods, which is what like holds them when they're in the rocket. And once they're in
Mhm.
space, they get launched out using a spring mechanism to push out. So like the size makes it a standard. So regardless of anybody building it, they know this are the
Ah,
specs to build it to. So if we have it, whatever, we can literally put anything as long as the launch provider is okay with it. For the most part, that's like there's few rules and regulations. There's the FCC and a couple other organizations you have to work with, but for the most part it's up to the launch provider. So it does, like, who you choose as your launch provider also depends on what you're trying to launch, what their requirements are, like what's their safety standards, like
mhm.
what kind of stuff you are allowed to put in it. Like right now you wouldn't be able to put any kind of chemical rocket in a CubeSat. So you'd have to rely on cold gas or reaction wheels or stuff like, or magnet workers or something like that. And so it's like a wide consideration. So if you have it built, and like it's a process that feeds off of each other. So each decision you make in the process of building it, including the launch provider, says, like, that means like you have to be adaptable with their standards. So you have to test everything so that you can check off all their requirements.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
And I imagine though that also how how to make it so that it's affordable. Obviously, as a company, you want to make money, and so figuring out the niche that is needed so that you can successfully have this business. That sounds so daunting to me.
Well,
Thinking
it is. It's daunting to me too, but
about.
it's also exciting. Like it gets me going. Like not knowing. I mean, it is scary. Sometimes I did think about, like, why am I doing this? But then, like, once you start to build things and you start to look at things and you just get so excited, it just feeds off. Feeds on to keep pushing until
Oh,
we can get to space and start growing.
I love it. I love it. Like you said, keep pushing, and eventually, not only do you win, but I win. Like how I threw that in there. I win. It's been so great chatting with you. I can't believe it's already been a half hour. So many questions. I'm so excited for you and the future of your company. And your upcoming launch. I'll be there cheering you. Well, not physically there unless you invite me to cheer you on all the way. So thanks for coming on. How
Thank
can
you very much.
people learn more about you and your company?
I could just go to www.iwin.space.
Yeah, nice and easy.
Yeah.
Iwin.space. And those of
Yep.
you who joined in today, Julio, Ethan, Justin, Yaz, um, thank you for tuning in. Today's recipe is delicious cookies. Um, and one of you is going to win the cookie recipe postcard for just tuning in and leaving a comment. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And Iwin, so great to chat with you.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great talking to you. I hope to keep in touch, and I would for sure invite you, when we're ready to launch.
Yay! And then I can have you on Space Snacks again. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.